healing of the name.
If you remember one thing from my message today, let it be this: be not afraid, because life and death are not fair. What happens to us, what happened to me, what happened to you, what will happen to us, none of it is fair. In fact, it is profoundly unfair. But ultimately, fairness is not the principle on which our world is built. The principle is of life that our world is built on. This principle is abundance, it is healing, it is resurrection. What powers our world is not the principle of fairness, but the principle of life. You can say amen to that. I'm preaching to myself included today. Life isn't fair, but we sure do want it to be, don't we? I know I want life to be fair. I never stop trying to make it fair. I never stop trying to do the right thing. I never stop trying to pursue justice, despite my experience that justice remains elusive. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever felt cheated? Have you ever had to forgive someone who didn't quite ask for it? Have you ever had to come clean for a mistake you thought wasn't quite a mistake? It is almost as if our instinct towards justice were some sort of cosmic joke. Even in our simplest of interactions, it seems fairness is still too hard. Let me ask you, have you ever tried to leave a justice-centered tip for mediocre service? Then you know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Fairness is hard. It's hard to know what fairness looks like in an unfair world. And surely this is evidence enough that life wasn't meant to be fair, but still we try to make fairness out of this unfair life. It's unfair that some of our bodies were not meant to exist as long as others. That's not fair. It isn't fair that suffering and pain should belong to some of us in vivid clarity, while others never seem to struggle. The mystery of suffering consumes us all, for in our human condition we are blessed with something called a nervous system. You see, our nervous system's sole job is to provide information about our physical pain to our brain, to help our brain interpret the things that hurt. You see, our nervous system is not so good at knowing whether danger is real or present. And so we end up feeling the pain and suffering not just of our past, of our childhood, but of generations past as well. Friends, I know this isn't fair. It's not fair that we should be paying for the sins of our ancestors, politically, physically, and otherwise, that the suffering of our great-great-grandparents should live in our society as well as our bodies. This is profoundly unfair. But again, our world is not built on a rule of fairness. It is built on a rule of life. Life finds a way. Life always wins. Life is our birthright, and not even death seems to threaten this principle. You see, as Unitarian Universalists, we can find wisdom wherever it is to be found. Amen? Okay. We fell asleep again. As Unitarian Universalists, we can encounter wisdom wherever it is to be found. Amen? We can find wisdom in a multitude of traditions. We can even find wisdom in the natural world by walking outside. We can find evidence of our interdependence and our collective hope, not just in the spiritual traditions that came before us, but in the very world we call home. It is August in New York, one of the hottest months to be recorded, and autumn is coming. Waves of animals are preparing to flee our shortening days and lengthening nights for the warmth of the south, as immobile plants will begin to wither, fade, and die in the cold and darkness of winter, only to be reborn in the coming months once again, as days begin to get longer and summer approaches. This principle of death and resurrection is the natural cycle of our environment. Transformation and resurrection are the engines of nature. moving generations forward. The rule of life, of abundance, of healing, of resurrection lives in our earth. You see, as Unitarian Universalists, the cosmos are signs of our inspiration. And just as readily as we inquire into the great human traditions and spiritual paths that are our birthright, we experience life returning again and again. We know resurrection in our bones, in our bodies. And even if we didn't, our poets have been singing about it since the first words were written. The oldest poetry canonized in our spiritual cultures was the Song of Songs, called Song of Solomon in some traditions. The Song of Solomon reads, "Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away, for behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone, the flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come. The voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The fig tree ripens, the vines are in blossom. They give forth fragrance. Arise, my love, my beautiful one, and come away." We sing about healing. We sing about resurrection, not just because we know them to be true, but because we see them around us and we feel their presence in our bodies. We, as living creatures, heal by nature. It is just what bodies do. Sometimes our bodies heal on purpose. Sometimes our bodies just follow their natural course of action in self-repair. Sometimes our behavior or our emotional context can interfere with the natural healing process. We can make it slower, we can make it harder, but still, we all heal. Wounds become scars. And it is important to remember that scar tissue has more nerve endings than unscarred tissue. That as we heal, our nervous system grows, deepens, gets ever more complex. And as we encounter difficulty, suffering, and pain, we become more sensitive and more acutely aware of our stimulation. This is the principle of life, that harm begets sensitivity, tenderness. Time yields poetry and beauty. Tragedy and suffering teach us that trouble don't last always. Joy comes in the morning. Our service today is entitled Crash and Burn, a recognition that in our lives, the crash is inevitable. And yet the crash cannot be the end of our story. For what lingers after the crash, the slow burn, is not suffering itself, but the magic of life. It isn't fair that we should be asked to forgive, that we should be asked to resurrect ourselves in the face of death, that we should be asked to heal from suffering, but it is promised that we will. It is promised that we will heal. This is the principle of life. We heal without earning it. Fairness never was the point. And you know, it reminds me that love never was fair either. We didn't earn the love that we receive either. We don't ask for love, yet we receive it, yet we feel it, and still we give it. We love things, people, places. We even love the things we have no business in loving. Amen? We love things that probably are not very good for us, but still we love them. We love them without reason or rationality. Sometimes we love without cause. There doesn't seem to be a principle of reason, let's say, at work in love. No, love follows the rule of life too. Love follows the rule of healing, the rule of resurrection, the rule of abundance. You see, the work of resurrection is the burn after the crash that I'm talking about. It's the work of grieving. It's acknowledging our loss amongst one another. This is the burn after the crash. The labor of acknowledging loss is a cultural power. Let me say that one more time. The labor of acknowledging loss is cultural power. This is how we move forward in a world that does not know peace. This is what allows us not only to survive loss, but to wield it, to wield loss as wisdom, to grow in depth, to grow in power as a people. This is how we level up culturally. This is how we move forward in our march toward peace. We heal as a culture by grieving together. The work of resurrection is healing. Our spiritual traditions, our literature, in fact, I would argue just about all literature is filled with evidence of this miraculous love, filled with evidence of this miraculous overcoming, filled with evidence of the sudden imposition of beauty or truth or liberty, even in impossible contexts. Our art is not simply a monument preserving the power of miracles, but is itself a miracle, causing the spontaneous liberation of those who encounter it. We sing so that we might know this freedom. We sing to communicate and transmit the power of life. I preach to myself as well when I say we walk around all day long so afraid to crash. So afraid that if we make a mistake, if we do something so wrong as to cause damage to someone else, or worse, be inappropriate, that it won't just be the harm of our crashing that we will experience, but that the pain of grief, that the slow burn of healing is itself a suffering we do not want to endure, that the slow burn of grief is simply perpetual suffering. We're afraid not just to crash, but to burn. We're afraid not just to lose, but to grieve. We're afraid of the suffering we can't escape, and so we avoid life like the plague, living in fear of making mistakes, in fear of life itself. But friends, we've traded our cow for magic beans. The wisdom, the boldness, the magic, the growth is in the crashing and the burning. The principle of life is that we make mistakes. We experience loss, and still we grow, and still we heal, and still we change. For just as wildfires clear the threshing floor of the forest to make room for new growth, so do our mistakes lay fertile soil for insight and wisdom to grow deep roots. Our world is fraying at its edges. Our institutions are crumbling at their foundations. I don't have the heart to give you a litany of everything that is coming apart right in front of our eyes. But what I can say is that right now, in this moment, our national moment as well as our church moment, what is being asked of us is boldness. We're being asked to move boldly into this church's and this nation's rapidly unfolding future. This moment for our little church mirrors the moment of our country in that we can no longer wait for other leaders to make our home what it should be. Those leaders must be us. The time is now, and together we have the responsibility to forge the next chapter in our congregation's rich history. I will choose to tell a story of healing. I'll choose to tell a story of resurrection. If what is asked of us in this time is boldness, then let it not be simply the boldness of faith, but a courageous creativity that allows us to live free today while protecting the liberty of the future. Because I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in a revolution that does not include dancing today. I'm not interested in working towards a greater freedom available to later generations. I'm interested in working for my freedom today. Friends, let me ask you, what is standing in your way? Do you live boldly? Do my words strike you? Have my utterances fallen on fertile soil? Do you live boldly? Do you feel this principle of life in you? Do you feel the abundance? Do you feel the principle of resurrection reinvigorating you after what feels like a small death? Or, frankly, are you still hoping for things to get fair? I understand if you are. If you're still afraid to crash and burn, that's okay. I honor and validate that fear because I'm afraid too. I am also afraid to crash because I know suffering is no joke. Grief is not a simple process, and so I am also afraid to burn because I know none of us deserve to suffer. We cannot change the fact that forces of fascism and destruction and death, the same old enemies of militarism, racism, and capitalism, continue to threaten our personhood. We cannot change the fact that they continue to threaten our legacies, religious and otherwise. But by now, I think all of us have woken up to the fact that this nation will soon crash, and the burn will soon follow. But this cannot be the end of the story, because joy comes in the morning. There is a balm in this world to make the wounded whole, and it is the principle of life upon which this world is built. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus asks us to look at the sparrows of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet God feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than sparrows? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I read that and I think, am I more valuable than a sparrow? I'm not sure that I am, because I live in an interdependent world where all of us are part of a single fabric of value and dignity. Is it fair, though, that the sparrows get fed? I think fairness isn't the point. Love is the point. It's the point of, love is the reason that flowers and sparrows and music even exist. This is the principle of life. If you go from here and remember one thing, friends, let it be this: be not afraid, for life and death are not fair. What happens to us, what has happened to me, and what has happened to you, and what will happen to all of us in different ways, is not fair. It is profoundly unfair. But do not be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to crash. Don't be afraid to live boldly, because ultimately fairness is not the principle on which our world is built. The principle our world is built on is life. Life is the principle of abundance, of healing, and of resurrection. What powers our world is not the principle of fairness, but the principle of life. And you can see it when you walk out this door. Amen.